We mark the first performance on March 11th, 1851, 173 years ago today, of Giuseppe Verdi's opera Rigoletto at Venice's storied Teatro la Fenice, the Phoenix Theatre. Verdi, 1813 to 1901, spent the last days of 1849 and the first weeks of 1850 considering future opera projects. Among the literary works Verdi was considering were three plays by Victor Hugo: Marion Delorme, Ruy Blas, and The King's Jester. The more Verdi thought about it, the more excited he became at the prospect of turning Victor Hugo's The King's Jester into an opera for the Teatro la Fenice in Venice. However, Verdi understood that an opera about a nobleman who, among his hobbies, rapes and traffics in teenage girls could be perceived as controversial. Aware, then, that the Venetian censors might put a nix on the entire project at any moment, Verdi urgently wrote to his librettist, Francesco Piave, who lived there in Venice, and expressed his unalloyed enthusiasm for the project. Quote, "Oh, The King's Jester is the greatest plot, and perhaps the greatest drama of modern times. And the Hunchback is a creation worthy of Shakespeare. It is a subject that cannot fail. You know that 6 years ago, when Mocenigo suggested Ernani to me, I exclaimed, 'Yes, by God, that's the right one.' Now, like a bolt of lightning, like an inspiration, I thought of The King's Jester, and I said the same thing. 'Yes, by God, that's the right one.' Turn Venice upside down to make the censors permit this subject. As soon as you get this letter, get yourself 4 legs." Yeah, we can assume here that Verdi is telling Piave to get on a horse and run all over the city and try to find an influential person who can get you permission for The King's Jester. Don't go to sleep. Get moving. Hurry." Unquote. Yeah, Verdi was right to be worried about the censors. Victor Hugo's play is a controversial tale about a French monarch, Francis I, who is portrayed as a lecher and a rapist. There is no hero in this story. Rather, the protagonist is a nasty, hunchbacked court jester whose own daughter, named Bianca in the play, is raped by the boss, King Francis. At a time, 1850, when kings and emperors and princes were increasingly being perceived across Europe as anachronistic and repressive feudal dinosaurs, the censors in Venice, as employees of those very same dinosaurs, were certainly not likely to approve such a libretto. On December 1st, 1850, the censors' decision regarding Piave's already sanitized libretto was received. The verdict, sent in the name of His Excellency the Signor Military Governor Cavalier de Gorskowski, stated that His Excellency, and we quote, "deplores the fact that the poet Piave and the famous maestro Verdi chose such a repugnant example of immorality and obscene triviality as the plot of the libretto called La Maledizione, the curse, which is what the opera was being called at the time. His Excellency has therefore found that he must absolutely prohibit this production and, at the same time, wants me to warn the directors of La Fenice not to insist further on this matter. Signed, Luigi Martello, Director of the Office of Public Order," unquote. Ha! Do not insist further on this matter? What, were they kidding? This was Giuseppe Verdi the authorities were dealing with, a man for whom the words, "the authorities said no," had very little meaning. According to Verdi himself, the censors' decision made him, quote, "go crazy," unquote. Spoiler alert. In the end, Giuseppe Verdi got his way, and the king's Jester, called after that, the curse, but now entitled Rigoletto, went on the boards with nary a cut. To find out just how Verdi managed to have his way with the censors, join me for my Music History Monday podcast, which can be accessed on all podcast platforms, or enjoy the illustrated full-text ad-free version of this blog and much more on my Patreon channel.